how do you create an environment in these spaces of your life that help to foster Jesus conversations? Does that make sense? Like as a Jesus follower, as a missionary that's sent into the world, and that's who you are. The question is, how do I create an environment that can foster Jesus conversations with the people that are around me? I was talking to my mom last night, and my mom she's planted so many seeds in my life. I mean, I've just been blessed, with a mother who just took that serious. And as I look back, to my life, there's a lot of me at times that, growing up would say, I want to be wired like my dad, but the reality of it is I'm so wired like my mom. And I watch the way in which she's lived her life and some of those key principles that she's planted into my life. I know there was a time in her life where she wondered, is there any soil there that seeds can give life to, like in that boy? Like, his heart is hard, and gosh, it was. And I know there's been Mother's Days that my mom has had where I've caused a lot of grief in her life. But I also know this. I know that God's extremely patient with us. And I know that God's for us and He's not against us. And I know at times, moms, that as your kids get older, if you think raising elementary kids is hard, wait till they become teenagers. And if you think raising teenagers are hard, wait till they become adults. Just at times there will be tough moments, moms. There'll be tough moments. But I just want to kind of speak over you today as we're talking about planting. Never underestimate the significance of the seeds that you plant in your children's lives. And you might not see what's happening underneath the soil, and you might doubt the seeds that you've planted, but just know that God will use you unlike anybody else on the face of the planet when it comes to the influence of your kids. And so I just say, one, it's never too late to keep giving it a go, all right? And it's the long game, not the short game. It's the long game, not the short game. And God will use it. And God will use it. So I just bless you in that today. And for those of you that have kids moving into or who are adults, may you have tenacity in never giving up in planting those seeds of life in their life, even if they don't want to hear it. Does that make sense? Now, is without a doubt some of those seeds that Mom planted in my life, when I was at my very worst, it were some of those seeds that allowed me to get up and start moving forward in my life. Okay? All right, if you got your Bibles with you, we're going to be in John 4. So we've been looking through the story of the woman at the well the last couple of weeks. The first week we looked at this idea of Jesus, how He just names His gospel neighborhood and sees Himself through that lens using our language. Then last week we saw that He started tilling the soil and having conversations and really asking the question of, can I really speak into this person's life? So as I'm going to be a good friend, a good listener, a good servant, Jesus exposes something and wants to know, will this woman press back to me? And she does. And now today we're going to get to this place where we actually get to see Jesus plant these seeds of life, these gospel seeds into her life. I just love this story. It's so good. All right, verse 19. Okay, verse 19. And this is right on the heels of, he says in 18, she's like, I don't have any husbands. And she's like, yep, you've had 5 of them. And the one that you have right now, not even your husband. And she goes, what you've said is true. Then verse 19, the woman said to him, sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. I'm guessing if he says that to you, he probably is, right? Our fathers worshiped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship. And Jesus said to her, woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is here, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. I just want to take a moment right there and just pause. And I think it's so important how Jesus defines worship. So he says true worshipers, which means there must be false worshipers, that true worshipers worship in spirit and in truth. Well, what does that mean to worship in spirit and truth? I just been thinking about this week, and I just say this, worshiping in spirit is this. It's trusting in God's sovereign goodness of what he will do in my life. So when I worship in the Spirit, I'm trusting that as I look forward in my life, I'm trusting in God's sovereign goodness of what he will do. That God is for me in the future, not against me. Now, I love the fact that he says, and truth, because this is not some blind hope that we have in our lives. But truth is worshiping God by standing on the foundation of what God has already done. Are you tracking? So as I worship looking forward in hope of what God will do, I do it on the foundation of what God has already done within my life. And so if I don't have a sense of what God has already done in my life, it's hard for me to worship what I would call in gospel hope. Sometimes we come and we worship in, I would say, worldly optimism. So we come to church on Sunday, or we get in our Bible during the week, and we think, okay, let me convince God to deliver on this thing in my life that I hope that he'll do. I don't know about you guys. I find that temptation so real in my life. I got something going on. I think, okay, how can I convince God to give me my way on this? And so maybe if I just pray enough, or if I just sing loud enough, or if I just get to church early enough, or if I just attend this enough, maybe then God will see what I'm doing and he'll actually give me what I want. That's called working for grace and not from it. What Jesus is saying here is this. He's saying this: the God who was faithful yesterday in your life is the same God that goes before you into tomorrow. And so may you stand and worship him in the truth of what he's already done and the hope of his sovereign goodness and what he will do in my life. And so as the song just said, I sing of what you've already done for me. That's why I sing. I sing of what you've already done with the expectation of what you will do. And you may say, well, I don't know, what has God done in my life? Where has his goodness been? And we would just say from bare minimum, in this room, we would say that in Jesus, God took on our death so we could have his life today, tomorrow, and forever. And in Jesus, God chooses not to hold over our heads the places where we miss the mark, which is sin. Good news. That's good news. And so bare minimum, we stand on that foundation, looking towards his sovereign goodness in our life of what he will do next. All right, so worship in spirit and in truth. In spirit and in truth. So there's also the sense that like there's false worship, okay? So like the false worship is like I come to maybe something like Sunday morning, or I'm a part of this or that when it comes to church stuff, and I think that somehow I've got to convince or earn my way or do something for God to be like okay with me. That's false worship. It's false worship. I think it's really important for us in our lives just to think through that lens, say, what am I coming to the table with when I come to worship him? All right, here we go. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. And the woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. And when he comes, he will tell us all things. It's interesting because like Jesus has just told her basically everything about her life right before then. And Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he. So as Jesus is talking, she presses in for more, like she wants more. And as she wants more, he then plants that gospel seed within her life. The one that you're looking for. I am that one. I am that one. Okay. So what does it look like to plant seeds? What does planting seeds and watering look like within our lives? I would just say this. Seeding is having gospel conversations that move people toward Jesus. It's having conversations that move people toward Jesus. And it doesn't matter what kind of step that is. It could be a small step or a big step, but it's when the door opens up. So remember, you've identified the spaces that you have in your life. You're tilling the soil. You're being a good friend, good listener, good servant, okay? Like those things have to happen before the planting can take place. And then you're just asking the question, when God opens up the door, what's a gospel conversation that can move people toward Jesus? Just take one step towards him. Planting seeds is saying this, my life looks this way because of Jesus. Like that's absolutely the way to do it. So when the door opens up, I would encourage you to start with, my life looks this way because of Jesus. And often coming out of maybe a place of struggle, because it's in the places of struggle that God's working on our character the most. And it's from this place that I'm learning this, and my life looks this way because of Jesus. So planting is when we stop observing our gospel neighborhood and the culture that's there, and we actually start trying to shape it. We actually start trying to shape it, okay? So this is just a little thing. I'm just trying to give you a lens of it. So I coach some of my kids' teams, and you guys get a lot of that stuff because that's a big part of our gospel neighborhood. When the games are over, we bring all the kids together, and we say to them, what's one thing that you saw somebody else do great that you want to celebrate from tonight's game? And so they start, talking. Inevitably, one of them will say, well, I did. And I'll say, no. It's not celebrating what you did. What did you see somebody else do that's great? Right? Because what's one thing that our culture, like we love to do? We love to put other people down, lift ourselves up. Okay? But in gospel land, it's the other way around. We actually celebrate others. We lift them up. And I mean, honestly, I'm around kids a lot because I have kids. And most kids I talk to, and kind of how, a lot of adults I talk to now, we really want to lift ourselves up because we're really so insecure in who we are. And because we're insecure in who we are, we think we need to convince everybody else that we're the thing that we want to be. And then we end up competing against each other. And that's no way to live, you guys. That's no way to live. So then the second part of it is we say, okay, kids, where did you let the team down tonight that you need to own your mistake? Because what do we have a hard time doing in our life? We have a hard time owning our junk, don't we? We have a hard time just saying, you know what, I blew that. I messed that one up. We want to pass the buck. That's Genesis 3. When God's like, where are you guys? Where are you? They're hiding because they found out they were naked because they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good. Did you eat from that tree? Adam's like, the woman made me do it. And Eve's like, the snake made me do it. Right? Like we like to pass the buck. We like to point it, push it on to everybody else, not own our junk and lift ourselves up. And so one way that I'm just planting some gospel seeds is, and then it's not really for the kids. Like the kids' thing's for the kids, but I make sure all the adults are around because it's a little parenting nugget that I need to hear that I didn't come up with, that somebody instilled into me. But that's what it means. Like we just plant the seeds within the gospel conversation that's there. Here's a question that every missionary needs to ask. Okay? The question of an everyday missionary is, how is Jesus changing my life in this current season? That's your seed to plant. That's your seed to plant. How is Jesus changing my life in this current season? What are the big places of character things that God's doing in your life? Now, that's a huge assumption because I promise you there have been folks who have been faithful coming every Sunday of their life and they compartmentalize their faith, and Monday through Saturday, their whole life, they never let Jesus change their character. And when that happens, you don't have good news to share because your life is not any different. They're like, why do you go to that thing on Sunday? Like, I don't see any difference in you. Why would I want your life? So the assumption here in this room is that all of us, as followers of Jesus, we know how Jesus is changing our life in the current season. All right, let me just tell you what Jesus is doing in my life in this current season. Like, he's helping me love Fayetteville. I know it may seem hard to do. Like, he's helped me love Fayetteville, and he's doing it this way. Like, there's a couple things he's been doing this season. One is he's just said, Chad, you're not from here. I'm like, no, duh. Of course I'm not. Why would I be from here? You know, like, you're not from here. Meaning, this is not the place where you can expect like a ton of, like, you're not from this place. You're sent to here. You're sent here. And so you're sent as an everyday missionary to this place. There will come a point in time in your life when you will not live in Fayetteville. And you will live somewhere where you're sent from. That may be retirement or whatever that looks like, you know, whatever it is. But right now, you're sent to here. So stop complaining about it. I didn't ask you if you would like it when I sent you here. I just sent you here. It's been huge for me because, you know what, I have lots of conversations with people and they say things like, we just don't like Fayetteville. We're going to be here just a little bit longer and then we're going to leave. And so we can't wait to get out. And it's just helping me when that conversation takes place to say, you know what? Like, maybe God has sent you here. Like, would it change if you saw it that way? That maybe this was a place where God was sending you to make it better when you leave than it was when you got here. It's been huge. And then the other thing God's been doing in my heart, here the last little bit, just a couple things is, I guess I'll just say it. I get so mad when the army sends people away. And like, I don't get mad at the army, I get mad at you. Like you have a choice. When you say yes to one thing, you say no to something else, you guys, So you should say yes to me. I mean, like it's so weird, right? It's so weird. And so the Lord's just been revealing, like, hey, bro, like, they don't have, like, they're doing their deal, man. Like, it's unfair to project that onto them. And then at the same time, he also said, but what about for all of you all that like live in this community, in this area? Like one of the things that's so hard sometimes is to connect when people are here for a short amount of time into Fayetteville. What if you were a part, and your community church was a part of the roots of Fayetteville that were connected in all different kinds of areas within the city and the region? And what if you could help people connect to the depths of the city faster and in a more sincere way? That they would grow to love it the way you're growing to love it. Now, I'm just giving you two little examples of two things that God's doing in my life that inevitably I have conversations with people, and that's my gospel seed to plant. Now, there have been times in the past where it's been like, you're a crummy husband, you need to work on that. And when I talk to folks, I'm like, I remember when I was a crummy husband. Life's a whole lot better now that I'm not. I'm still a work in progress, but life's a whole lot better when you're not a crummy husband. Life's a whole lot better when you're not, there's no, like you just pick it out. I'm just asking you, I'm asking you in your life, this is your responsibility as a missionary. How is Jesus changing your life in this current season? And if he's not changing your life in this current season, you don't know how to articulate it, it should be like a huge red flag for you. Because the work that God wants to do through you, he must first do what? He must do that work in you. You guys hear us say it all the time. The work he's doing in you right now is the work he wants to do through you tomorrow. So the work he's doing in you today is the testimony that you get to offer tomorrow. Are you tracking? And so if I'm not attentive to the work he's doing in my heart today, then I'm going to get in a conversation and I'm not going to have the seed to plant where God needs me to because I haven't attended to the work that he's been doing in my life. The work he's doing in your life right now is not just for you, guys. It's not just for you. And I would say the work he's doing in you right now is secondary to the testimony he wants to give through you. Because when you give that testimony through you, you plant that seed. We're in a place where you've been a good friend, a good listener, and a good servant. Maybe not 100% of the time, but lots of times, that person does this to Jesus. They take a step towards Jesus. And I would just say that whenever God uses me or you to help people take a step towards Jesus, that breakthrough and fruit is more important than the work he's doing in your life. But that fruit can't ever happen unless I'm aware of what he's changing in my life right now. And I would actually, can you write it down, what he's doing in your life in this current season? What characters he's shaping in your life? Now, every garden needs the same thing, okay, for a seed to grow. It needs light, water, and time. Your testimony does all three of those things. Light is this. Light is the righteousness, the Holy Spirit's work within you. using the metaphor, water which nourishes the seed that causes it to sprout is your wisdom, discernment, and prayer. In other words, it's me and you recognizing the door is open and us walking into the door. So it's being aware of the door opening up in the midst of the conversation and actually walking through it. It takes wisdom, discernment, and prayer. And so, it puts on the table in front of us again. This is a huge disclaimer. Like, what we're calling ourselves to, my life, like, this is not easy. This is not, like, I recognize it's not easy. I was on, a call with somebody on Friday doing a little podcast interview deal, and they just basically said this, like, this is hard work. How do you guys keep doing it? Like, I know it's hard work. I'm just saying it's worth it. Like, it's worthy work. And so I'm saying, like, us together, we should be expecting of each other. Are we praying? Are we praying for those gospel neighborhoods and for God to give us an opportunity to walk through the door? Like, do you do that? Do you do that? And then when the door opens, do you walk through it? Do I walk through it? Waters that discernment, that prayer. And then time is this, is that the relationship you're building, we have to recognize that God will bring the harvest in His time. And so in the same way that my mom has planted seeds in my life, that I'm hard soil, it took a long time to germinate. It took a long time for sprouts to come up. In the same way, you might plant seeds today that you don't ever get to see the sprout come up. You don't ever get to see the harvest that happens. We just got to trust that God will bring it. And I think, I've never been to heaven before. I hope to wait a little while before I get there. But when I get there, my sense is that the Lord will have a chance to show me. I think He's going to show me on one hand all the stuff I don't want to see. Like, can you imagine having to look at your life from the outside in with God Almighty, some of the stuff that we've done? Oh my gosh, it'd be so hard. I think it's going to be that, and I think He's going to say, "Look, I'm not holding that stuff against you. Jesus squared it away." But then I think there's going to be also let me show you all the gospel seeds you've planted. And let me show you how I've brought the harvest in all of these people's lives. Let me show you all the lives that have been affected because you were as faithful as you could be, not perfect, faithful as you could be in being a gospel missionary. I think it's going to be beautiful.